Our world is a shadow of the true reality that is the world of the forms. For we live within caves, separated from one another. We do not wish to leave the cave. It is safe here. We are happy here. And we are not alone. For behind us a fire burns bright light, and upon our cave wall shadows flicker and dance, showing us images of what the outside world looks like, how perfect and fun it is. Oh, Jimmy Wong, you're so cool in game nights. But we must find a way out. We need to leave the dungeon in search of magic. The question is, who will guide us without the wisdom of the innkeeper?
Ah! Hi everyone, welcome to the Dungeon Inn. My name is Brick. I am not the innkeeper, and we will not be talking about Dungeons and Dragons today. Instead, we're going to be talking about something much different. Magic the Gathering, and specifically asking ourselves the question, can a 2,400-year-old Greek text tell us how to play the game better? To answer our question, let's start where we always do. 4th century ancient Greece. The Greek philosopher Plato created the allegory of the cave in one of his works, The Republic. You know Plato? You may know him from something. Within the allegory, Plato describes a group of people chained within a cave, a hypothetical. These people, they watch the shadows flicker and project across a cave wall. They have been chained there since birth, and they have no idea what the outside world looks like, except for what they can imagine from the flickering shadows on the wall. To them, the shadows and the reality they create are real. It's the only reality they've known, because they've never experienced anything else outside of the cave. This idea, the allegory of the cave, is a metaphor for how we mistake representations of reality for reality itself. But also, we can use it within Magic the Gathering as a reflection for how we as players can often understand the game, or misunderstand the game, or consumption of experiences through content creation or media, such as YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, can confuse our expectations at the game table. To dive in deeper, let's start with the cave. So by applying Plato's allegory within Magic the Gathering, we can build a comparison to how many new but also experienced players within Commander, most particularly, set expectations in their games through what we have consumed through online content. Our Commander cave, in this little metaphor of an allegory, of a hypothetical, is YouTube, a place where magic content can be consumed, analyzed, and most importantly, entertained by. YouTube is our cave for Commander content because it's a lot easier to watch Commander sometimes than it is to play it. I know personally I fall into this. I will be cooped up assembling decks on Moxfield or looking for Scryfall, and then I have a Commander video just on my screen at all times, just watching it, listening to it, not really paying attention sometimes, but it's just there. And that's me. Shorts, TikTok, YouTube videos, even EDH Rec. All these are different avenues to exposure of Magic that can create an ecosystem where one is engaging and taking part in Magic, but also not really playing it. It's kind of like a content to consumer pipeline where you're not really engaging or adding anything within it, but you're simply downloading the imprint of what content is being made. This then brings us to the second stem of the allegory, the shadows on the wall. For example, if YouTube is the cave, the shadows along the wall are videos of the content. Shuffle up and play, game nights, Commander at home, play to win. The list is almost endless, but we are within anything but a shortage of videoed Commander content. While brackets or power level can vary from channel to channel, they all will share usually a couple similarities in how they're well shot, paced, clean, and most importantly, edited. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the content is great. I fucking love it, but being edited doesn't mean it's fake. It's simply about removing the things in Commander that kind of suck. Dead turns, takesy-backsies, awkward pauses, and I'm sure many games that have been recorded are not really used because they can be anything from not satisfying to the vibes are off. Because what you are seeing online is a carefully crafted instrument to be as entertaining as possible, it's not fake or scripted. It's a incomplete experience. And with repeated viewing of Commander content, we can internalize feelings that what we watch is what a Commander game should be, or a balanced table is, or that a deck list from a game is what a Commander deck should be within power level. And that, I don't know, maybe a card that's repetitively played is totally okay to be played against. Commander outside of content is messy. Decks stall out, or snowball very one-sidedly. With each game that ends with a sudden burst, another will just keep going on and on and on and on. One channel's fair meta may be absolutely vibrating in another, and what is considered as the baseline of power level can just vary from channel to channel. Say, taking a deck from play to win and going and versing the professor with it, he'd get steamrolled. But who are these dastardly puppeteers controlling us from the tendrils of darkness within the cave? And why do they seek to ruin our Commander games? Well, that's a great question. You see within this analogy, creators are the puppeteers. But here's where it's important not to get cynical. Content creators aren't trying to deceive you, trick, or manipulate you. By single! They're trying to do something much, much, much harder than that. They're trying to make Commander watchable. Because honestly, raw Commander gameplay isn't that. Sometimes decks and games need to be carefully curated in terms of making a well-balanced game where no deck is going to spin off, or maybe one isn't going to do nothing. Content creators aren't trying to document Commander within their videos. They're directing an EDH video. And honestly, that's why their content is good. I'll have more to say about this, but let's just hold it back there. For this section, we are going to create a thought experiment as a vehicle to navigate through our breakdown of this analogy. It may get weird. Our thought experiment is going to use the premise of Plato's original analogy. The prisoners on the wall have been chained there since birth, unable to know what the outside world could look like except for what they can supplement from the shadows. Now, this can be true with this little thought experiment for new players entering within Commander. New players do enter Commander all the time from videos that they've seen within content creation. Maybe they don't have an LGS to go to. Maybe they don't have a group of friends that they're used to playing with. Possibly they just bought cards that they liked from a Universe Beyond franchise, such as Final Fantasy or Fallout or Baldur's Gate, and they want to see what this game has to offer. Enter our thought persona, Jimmy. Jimmy likes Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. He watches a streamer he likes play the Cloud precon. Within the Let's Play, the Cloud player built a sizable tempo all throughout the game, usually playing a creature to an artifact every single turn. After enjoying that video, Jimmy watches a couple other from the channel, trying to understand how to play Magic or how things like politics or rules work at that table to then bring with him when he goes to the outside world to play Magic. One of the things that the table enjoyed was politics, so Jimmy takes on that that's very important when he's building his Cloud deck. Jimmy then buys the Cloud precon and several other cards that were featured on the YouTube upgrade list, including a Game Changer and strong synergy pieces. They're a bit expensive, but Jimmy wants to win his first game. That is the point of Commander, right? When Jimmy finally plays his first game at his local LGS, the game doesn't go as planned. First of all, Jimmy misses several land drops all throughout the first turns. He's not able to play on tempo each turn, and his Game Changer was countered. The other players are having absolutely no agreeance to his political plays without leverage, and he's promptly defeated by turn 7, only after swinging his commander twice. Worse, one of the other players made a comment about Jimmy's commander, something about Universe Beyond and Cloud being too strong, and then they read out their cards like everyone knew what they did, but Jimmy didn't feel like he understood the game at all. In this simulation, Jimmy is disappointed. The game did not match the experience he had understood from watching videos of Magic. Despite playing a game in person and maybe reconstructing his expectations and understandings from that experience, Jimmy chooses to remain within the cave and watch the shadows on the wall. However, let's break this concept down further. What we have just done is create a straw man, a tool to help us understand what a prisoner on the wall looks like within Magic, and how we can apply this allegory. I'm sure this scenario can and probably has happened within the game at some point. With Universe Beyond attracting more and more players to the hobby, this can be a recurring experience of expectations and game results. But I think there's a further scenario or understanding we can use to apply this allegory within, and how it isn't new players. It's one I can see myself aligning with the more and more I play Magic. I believe when seasoned or experienced players within the game consume more and more Magic content, we can sometimes, through some sort of osmosis or siltation over time, build our understandings of Magic through what we see within content creator games or podcasts. For example, sometimes in the game, a player next to me plays a card, and I go, wow, that's a great card. And then I change my game state actions to kind of curve the power or position of that card that was just played against me. But I've never played or kind of seen what it does personally within a physical game. I've just seen it played within a podcast where it might be repeatedly played there and they have a higher expectation of its power. Then say I swing a creature at the player only to find that the card that I've judged their deck's power with doesn't have as much impact as I originally believed it did. What I have done is not just react to a change in the game state. I have changed my gameplay actions from a constructed experience with the card that is maybe not my own reflection of it, and not from my own experience within Magic. I have seen the shadow of an animal on the wall and judged it to be a threat, only to find it's not a predator in reality. But what is reality? And can we leave the cave? And if we leave the cave, how do we make sure we don't come back to it? And wait, what if it's all just caves all the way down? Within Plato's allegory, leaving the cave is difficult. The light of the sun after so many years in the darkness of the cave is blinding. But from that difficult journey, the once prisoners are able to understand the truth of the world and what they have been living under the whole time. Overwhelming, confusing, too much. Sound familiar? Because I think we have all felt these feelings sometime when piloting a new deck. When a player trapped within the cave plays a deck that they have picked up from a video or never played with in person for the first time, it can sometimes be a difficult experience with the deck doing too much or too little. Power imbalance at a table, with games being off or clashing, misplays, missing triggers, or missing land drops. These can all happen frequently at the table and greatly diminish a game experience. But this is what the reality of a Commander game is. Even though EDH is a game that we all play for fun, not every game is a good game. Damn, that light is blinding. But from all these disorientating game moments in real Commander, and experience with the confusion it can bring, we can gain enlightenment of a richer, more fulfilling game experience than what we consume online. From your own experience with a local playgroup, or dipping your foot into an LGS, you'll start to understand a group or community's meta, and the power levels that can go with them. Or maybe even understand better the bracket system. Through more games, you start to understand your own playstyle, and from your own experience, feel too salty, or just right. You better learn what your deck lines and play patterns do within a game, and how you can build a fulfilling game experience not just through winning the game, but just playing your deck the way it's supposed to be played. And most importantly, you can begin to stop building expectations from the game to look like a player real, and learn to love and understand the nitty-gritty particularities of the game that we all love and also kind of hate. Furthermore, the act of the cave can be applied and understood within every other hobby space. Debatably more relevant to this allegory, and maybe the original purpose of this channel, Dungeons & Dragons is a great example of the understanding of the game through content creation being misunderstood or created from a simulation of it rather than the reality of it. Think of larger D&D channels or media outlets such as Critical Role and Dropout. These have created such entertaining stories and built entire simulacrums of the game that can build audiences' expectations and understandings of what it is to play D&D to just be misunderstood from the reality of it, especially when they are face to face with a party of murder freaks and main character syndromes. Yikes. You know what? Maybe it's better to stay in the cave sometimes. But why do we as humans long for the cave? We long for it for the same reason that we did when we were apes, millions and millions of years ago. Sadly, we haven't really evolved so far. So this is a far more complicated concept than I can really do justice here. But I believe it's because our brains find it more comfortable to observe rather than participate. It's always more comfortable to watch a game of Commander through the screen than it is to sit down at the Commander table and get sworn at by a guy who thinks your Mariner Clan Neltov deck is a broken problem, but his Urza deck is not like those other ones? The caves are comfortable. The caves agree with us. They often affirm what we already believe or tell us something that we already know. Yeah, it's that dude's fault for running Urza. You're not the problem. Go post on Am I the Asshole and get that karma. We as people will always take the easiest solution possible. Think of the biggest tool that assists players with creating new decks. Spoilers, it's probably not Scryfall, it's EDHREC. Players want an easy path to be able to help them build Magic decks or play through an experience. Because it's hard to come up with something that is completely brand new. And the reality is, for the millions of players that have sat down in Magic, usually the lines that you find aren't original. You're not the first to find them. So why not just take the easy path? Why not just take what everyone else is already bringing to the deck? Why go through so much difficulty when there's a 50-50 chance you just toss the deck the first time you play it? Plato's allegory, however, is incomplete, because it was designed with Plato's particular philosophy of kings in mind, that there is a true and complete knowledge that the masses are incapable of processing. Instead, they need to be led by those who have become enlightened, those philosopher kings who can handle the light. It's a very peak of Greek hegemony way in terms of how they looked at the world. The truth is that there is no truth. There is no light. There is no objective, one right way to play Commander. In reality, instead of light, all we have is this. Right. Let's recap. We play Magic. Have fun. Yay! Creator plays Magic. Has fun. Yay! We think to ourselves, we have fun, but I think Creator has more fun. We wish games were just like Creator. Monkey neuron in brain starts to interpret reality influenced by what we see online. We not have as much fun in game because game in real life not like game of Creator. We read ancient Greek text of Old Man 2,400 years ago and understand manipulation of simulation of reality versus reality of our own experiences. Gain enlightenment. Play group fun again. Win? Well, if only it was as easy as that. Let's break it down again. If the cave is a simulation of the game with its own rules of what is fair and what is to be expected and how you can play within it, the question rises, is every space we play in its own individual cave? Let's take, for example, house rules. Similar to how some channels have their own individual idea of what level they like to make decks, whether that be for entertainment, price, or for power reasons, friend groups, LGSs, and kitchen tables have their own special quirks or metas that mold to a particular gravity of choice. When we have built our examples previously, we have followed the perspective of one leaving their own allegory of the cave, but perhaps what we have not considered is that they are really moving from one cave in the ground simply to a different cave within the mountains far away from them to play Commander how its inhabitants have been taught by their own individual shadows. This discourse is quite known within Commander. I'm sure we've all heard a story or two about a problem player or problem players with their own ideas of how the game should be played. But how do we tackle with this problem? Throughout this entire video, we have been trying to pin down the cave in which some players are living and how to free them. But if it's caves simply everywhere and each playgroup is its own individual cave, how do we escape all these pesky caves? Perhaps we can just live in them? At this point, you might be thinking that the metaphor has gone the fuck out of hand. Weren't we talking about Magic the Gathering? Wait, is this a D&D channel? My point is that this is actually bigger than just Magic. It's about our nature as people. We live in caves, and unlike in Plato's Allegory, or the revolutionist manifesto of our time, Gurren Lagann, we can't just break through the walls of our caves into objective truth. In doing so, we only find ourselves in another cave and then convince ourselves that this is really the outside world. From the moment we are born, all we know is shadows. We are taught by shadows, and told by the puppeteers this is what reality is. As we grow older, how we relate to these shadows is from the foundation of our relationship with ourselves. As we venture through the caves then, we linger in ones with shadows that look like the ones we know, that we understand. Maybe if we didn't like the shadows we grew up with, we instead settle in those online caves and communities that help us feel safe. We find ourselves in communities forging connections with people who believe the shadows are just as real as we want them to be, and leaving them behind is unthinkable. Social media is a toxic machine that feeds us algorithmically driven shadows and convinces us that the cave that we are in is the only cave that matters, and that it's okay to be here. It's okay to feel safe. The villains aren't content creators. The villains are algorithms designed to maximize your limited retention and break down your brain's natural willingness to let them. At every point, we as humans must fight the impulse to offload our cognitive and social capacity to content passively feeding on us. Yes, it's easier. Yes, our brain likes it. Yes, there is a time and a place for brain rot. After I read this script, I am definitely going to sit in bed and chill the fuck out. Love me a scroll. In this very, very amateur video about Dungeons & Dragons Magic the Gathering, we are declaring that Plato is wrong. Enlightenment doesn't come from leaving the cave. It comes from being aware that all we will ever exist within is caves. All we'll ever know is shadows. But that we can't let one shadow rule us. There may not be an objective light of knowledge for us to step into, but instead we must learn to see the shadows for what they really are. Cjbeards. Illusions and constructs made by people and societies to tell us this is what reality is. The radical freedom lies in our ability to navigate these shadows and construct our own reality. But in order to do that, we must leave the cave of our comfort. We must venture to uncharted territories with shadows that may be scary and unknown. Only by doing that do we give ourselves the opportunity to live and play Magic the Gathering. But, also, go to therapy or something. So, in conclusion, can an ancient text written 2,400 years ago by Plato tell us how to play Magic the Gathering better? Well, no. But what it can do is help us look at our relationship with media, how much content we consume, and what ideas are we maybe taking a little bit too much of. Maybe doing a cleanse every now and then. Maybe making a deck absolutely not looking at any online resources, just going through cards you have. Maybe just playing draft. The allegory of the cave, while not being helpful in understanding how we play Magic, is a helpful tool in understanding our relationship with media. It's a good time to ask yourself, what is fun within games? What do I enjoy about it? What do I not enjoy about it? And then talking about that with people you play with. To ask your friends, what are things that they enjoy? What are things they don't enjoy? Build a community together, and from that community, leave the cave and create a magic structure. In all seriousness, I hope that this video could give you some entertainment or help you understand a little bit more about magic and maybe yourself. And until next time, thank you for watching.